The might of Rome was not built on marble alone. Behind every conquest and frontier stood the most formidable military machine of the ancient world, the Roman legionary. These were not mere soldiers, but the embodiment of discipline, engineering, and tactical innovation that would define warfare for centuries. What transformed ordinary men into the ultimate fighting force of antiquity? How did Rome forge warriors capable of conquering the known world? And what can the legionary teach us about the relationship between military power and imperial ambition? Join us as we explore the remarkable story of Rome's legendary soldiers, the backbone of an empire that spanned 3 continents. The Roman legionary we recognize today, with his iconic rectangular shield, lorica segmentata armor, and gladius shortsword, was the product of centuries of military evolution. From humble beginnings as citizen soldiers defending a small city-state, the legionaries developed into professional warriors whose very appearance struck fear into enemies across Europe, Africa, and Asia. This transformation wasn't accidental. It was the result of ruthless adaptation, organizational genius, and an uncompromising culture of discipline. The Romans themselves attributed their military success not to individual heroism, but to their superior organization and unwavering discipline in the face of adversity. Origins and early development. The earliest Roman army, dating to the Kingdom period, 753 to 509 BCE, was modeled on Greek hoplite warfare, heavily armored spearmen fighting in tight phalanx formation. These early legionaries were drawn exclusively from property-owning citizens who could afford their own equipment. The wealthiest served as cavalry, while the middle class formed the heavy infantry. This system reflected the social hierarchy of early Rome. Military service was not just a duty, but a privilege of citizenship, creating a direct link between civic participation and military obligation that would define Roman identity for centuries. The military reforms of King Servius Tullius in the 6th century BCE established 5 property-based classes of soldiers, each with different equipment requirements. The wealthiest citizens formed the front ranks with the best armor and weapons, while poorer citizens served in the rear with more modest gear. This early system prioritized wealth over military effectiveness. By the early Republic, the Roman legion had evolved into the manipular system, more flexible units that could operate independently on rough Italian terrain. This adaptation came from hard lessons fighting the hill tribes and warriors of central Italy, where rigid phalanx tactics proved inadequate. The Second Punic War against Hannibal, 218 to 201 BCE, forced further evolution. Devastating defeats like Cannae taught harsh lessons about tactical flexibility and the importance of standardized training. The Romans proved remarkably willing to learn from their failures, adapting their equipment, tactics, and organization to meet new challenges. The Marian reforms. The most dramatic transformation of the Roman military came with the reforms of Gaius Marius in 107 BCE. Facing manpower shortages during wars in North Africa, Marius opened legion recruitment to landless citizens, the capite censi, or head count, who had previously been excluded from military service. This revolutionary change created a professional army of career soldiers, rather than temporary citizen soldiers. Legionaries now served for a standard 16 to 25-year term instead of just for specific campaigns. The state provided standardized equipment, ensuring uniform quality regardless of a soldier's personal wealth. Marius simplified the legion structure, eliminating the old class-based divisions and creating more uniform cohorts. He famously redesigned the legionaries' pack, ensuring soldiers could carry their own equipment, cooking utensils, and even entrenching tools. The Marian mules, as these heavily burdened legionaries were called, could establish fortified camps each night without supply wagons. Perhaps most consequentially, these reforms shifted legionary loyalty from the state to their commanders, the generals who could provide land grants upon retirement. This personal bond between troops and leaders would fuel the civil wars that eventually toppled the Republic. Marius also standardized the legionary eagle, aquila, as the primary symbol of each legion. More than just a standard, the eagle became a sacred embodiment of the legion's honor. The loss of an eagle was considered a catastrophic disgrace, and soldiers would risk everything to protect or recover their eagle. Training and discipline. What separated the Roman legionary from other ancient warriors was not superior physique or equipment, but extraordinary training. New recruits endured a brutal 4-month training regimen that transformed civilians into soldiers through relentless drilling, physical conditioning, and weapons practice. Training began with marching. Legionaries were expected to cover 20 Roman miles, 30 kilometers, in 5 hours, carrying full pack weighing over 60 pounds. They practiced with weapons twice daily, using wooden swords and wicker shields that were deliberately made heavier than combat equipment. The Romans institutionalized realistic combat training. Mock battles with weighted wooden weapons prepared soldiers for actual combat conditions. Recruits practiced against wooden posts, learning precisely where and how to strike to defeat an enemy most efficiently. Discipline was enforced through a sophisticated system of rewards and punishments. Valor in battle was recognized with decorations like the Corona Civica, for saving a fellow citizen, or the Corona Moralis, for being first over an enemy wall. Conversely, cowardice or disobedience brought severe consequences, including decimation, the execution of every 10th man in a disgraced unit, carried out by their comrades. Swimming, riding, and construction skills were also part of training. A legionary wasn't just a fighter. He was expected to build roads, bridges, and fortifications. This multifaceted training created soldiers who could not only conquer territory, but also transform and control it through engineering. The centurions, veteran officers who rose from the ranks, were the backbone of legionary discipline. Recognizable by their transverse crest helmets and vine staff, vitis, centurions led from the front and suffered casualty rates far higher than common legionaries. The most senior centurion, the primus pilus, commanded the first cohort and served as a key advisor to the legion commander. Equipment and tactics. The legionaries' equipment evolved through centuries of combat experience. By the early empire, it had been refined into an integrated system, optimized for the Roman style of warfare. The iconic lorica segmentata, the segmented plate armor, provided excellent protection while allowing mobility. The rectangular scutum shield measured about 40 by 33 inches and was constructed of laminated wood covered with canvas and leather. The gladius hispanicus, adopted after encountering the weapon in Spain during the Punic Wars, was a short sword designed for stabbing in close quarters. Combined with the large shield, it made legionaries lethal in tight formations where longer weapons became unwieldy. The pilum, a heavy javelin with a soft metal neck designed to bend on impact, served both to disrupt enemy formations before contact and to render enemy shields useless. Standard equipment also included the pugio, dagger, caligae, hobnailed sandals that provided excellent grip on varied terrain, and the cassis, helmet, that evolved from simple bronze caps to the sophisticated imperial Gallic designs that protected the face and neck while allowing good visibility and ventilation. In battle, legionaries typically formed 3 lines, triplex aces, allowing fresh troops to replace tired ones, or reinforce threatened sections. This arrangement sacrificed initial striking power for endurance, a strategic choice that recognized battles were often won not by the initial clash, but by outlasting the enemy. The testudo, tortoise formation, where soldiers created an interlocked shield wall including overhead coverage, demonstrated the Romans' tactical flexibility. This formation allowed legionaries to approach enemy walls under missile fire or to withstand attacks from all directions. Roman tactics emphasized cohesion rather than individual heroism. Legionaries were trained to maintain formation even under extreme pressure, This discipline allowed them to implement sophisticated maneuvers, like the famous wedge formation, or the controlled fighting withdrawal that could exhaust pursuing enemies. Camp life and engineering. The Roman marching camp was a marvel of military engineering. Even after a full day's march, legionaries would construct a fortified camp according to a standardized layout. Working in teams, they dug a defensive ditch, built an earthen rampart reinforced with stakes, and established a regular grid of streets and tent positions, all completed in roughly 3 hours. This nightly ritual served multiple purposes. It provided security against surprise attacks, imposed routine and discipline, and gave soldiers a consistent home environment, regardless of where they were campaigning. The standardized layout meant every soldier knew exactly where everything was located, even in camps they had never visited before. Camp life followed strict routines. The day was organized around trumpet signals, marking watches, meals, and duties. Soldiers slept 8 to a tent, creating tight-knit contubernium units that fostered camaraderie and mutual dependence. These small units ate, slept, trained, and fought together, creating powerful bonds of loyalty. Beyond military duties, legionaries performed countless construction projects that transformed the landscapes they conquered. They built the famous Roman roads that connected the empire, constructed bridges, aqueducts, and fortifications, and established the infrastructure of new colonies and settlements. The legionary diet was simple but nutritious, centered on grain, often prepared as porridge or bread, supplemented with vegetables, cheese, and rarely meat. Each soldier received a ration of posca, sour wine mixed with water rather than pure water, which helped prevent waterborne diseases. This balanced, consistent diet contributed significantly to the legionaries' physical resilience. Medical care for legionaries was remarkably sophisticated. Legionary fortresses contained dedicated hospitals, valetudinaria, with specialized rooms for surgery, recovery, and isolation of contagious cases. Army surgeons became skilled at treating battlefield wounds, performing amputations, and even basic dental work, giving Roman soldiers significantly better health care than the civilian population. The Legionary Society. To become a legionary was to enter a distinct society with its own customs, language, and value system. New recruits swore the sacramentum, a sacred oath binding them to follow orders and never desert their standards. This oath had religious significance, placing legionaries under divine judgment if they failed in their duties. Legionaries weren't permitted to marry legally during their service, though many formed unofficial relationships in the settlements, canabi, that grew up around permanent bases. After the reign of Septimius Severus, this marriage prohibition was relaxed, recognizing the reality of soldiers' family lives. Pay was modest but dependable, around 900 sesterces annually during the early empire, and was supplemented by donatives, bonuses, given by emperors at special occasions. A portion of each payment was deducted for food, equipment, and burial insurance, managed by the signiferi, standard bearers, who served as the legion's accountants. The true reward came at retirement. After honorable completion of service, veterans received a substantial cash payment or a land grant, often in a colonia established specifically for veterans. These colonies served multiple purposes: rewarding loyal soldiers, spreading Roman culture, and providing military security in frontier regions. The legions functioned as vehicles for social advancement and Romanization. Provincial recruits learned Latin, adopted Roman customs, and gained citizenship, if they didn't already have it. Upon retirement, these veterans spread Roman culture throughout the empire, becoming local elites in provincial communities. Within the legions, a complex hierarchy provided opportunities for advancement. Talented soldiers could be promoted to immunis, specialist with exemption from routine duties, tesserarius, guard commander, optio, second in command of a century, and ultimately centurion. The most exceptional centurions could even rise to the prestigious primipilaris rank, potentially entering the equestrian order. The imperial legions. Under Augustus, the chaotic legions of the Civil War period were transformed into a standardized imperial force. He reduced their number from over 60 to 28, creating a professional standing army loyal to the emperor rather than to individual generals. This restructured force would serve as the template for the imperial legions for the next 2 centuries. Each imperial legion was a self-contained force of approximately 5,000 infantry soldiers, plus cavalry and auxiliaries, commanded by a legatus legionis of senatorial rank. The legion's internal structure included 10 cohorts, the first double-sized, each divided into centuries of 80 men. This organization balanced tactical flexibility with administrative efficiency. The Praetorian Guard, the elite troops stationed in and around Rome, received higher pay and better conditions than regular legionaries, creating tensions within the military hierarchy. Increasingly, these troops became kingmakers in imperial politics, their support essential for any claimant to the throne. Augustus established a special military treasury, aerarium militare, funded by new taxes to ensure reliable payment of military salaries and retirement benefits. This financial innovation helped prevent the mutinies and loyalty problems that had plagued the late Republic. Decline and transformation. The 3rd century CE brought crisis to the empire and transformation to its legions. Economic problems led to currency debasement, reducing the real value of military pay. Recruitment standards declined as warfare became endemic, with legionary quality suffering as a result. Under Diocletian and Constantine, the Roman military underwent a radical reorganization. The old legions were divided into smaller units, with a separation between mobile field armies, comitatenses, and frontier forces, limitanii. Equipment became lighter, tactics emphasized mobility over formation, integrity, and cavalry played an increasingly important role. By the late 4th century, the classical legionary, with his heavy armor, large shield, and disciplined formation fighting, had largely disappeared. In his place stood lighter-armed troops, often of Germanic origin, fighting in styles that would have been unrecognizable to Caesar's veterans. Yet even as the traditional legionary faded from history, his legacy endured. The Byzantine armies that defended the Eastern Roman Empire for another 1,000 years maintained elements of legionary discipline and organization. Medieval military engineers studied and imitated Roman fortification techniques. Even today, modern military units trace their lineage and traditions back to the legions. The legacy of the Roman legionary. The Roman legionary represents one of history's most successful military adaptations. The transformation of ordinary men into an extraordinary fighting force through systematic training, equipment standardization, and organizational genius. For nearly a millennium, these soldiers defined the standard against which other armies were measured. What made the legionary remarkable was not superhuman strength or weaponry, but the system that produced him. Rome created institutions capable of consistently training effective soldiers regardless of their initial quality. This institutional approach to warfare, emphasizing organization over individual heroism, would influence military thinking for centuries to come. The legionary's dual role as warrior and builder left a permanent mark on Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. Roads, bridges, aqueducts, and entire cities stand as testaments to their engineering skills. The fortifications they built often became the nuclei around which medieval towns would develop, their layouts still visible in street patterns today. From a small city on the Tiber to the greatest empire of the ancient world, Rome's rise was made possible by the men who carried its eagles. The legionary transformed not just warfare, but the very landscape of the ancient world, creating an imperial infrastructure that would outlast the empire itself by centuries. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like it, subscribe to our channel, and press the bell icon so you never miss an update.